Shoreline Publishing presents the inaugural Independent Australian Authors Symposium 2020, Saturday, November 14 at the Victoria Park Golf Club, Herston, Queensland. This unique one-day event gives you the chance to mingle with the community of authors and writers and public figures from around Australia. Be quick and get your seat at shorelinepublishing.com.au. Simone from Brisbane Audiobook Production. Now, one of the guest authors attending is the lovely Gillian Wells. Jill is an English woman living in rural Australia with her cattle dog Jess. She loves writing and she also enjoys gardening, cooking, horse riding and singing amongst other interests when she has time, I guess. She's travelled widely in Australia and she enjoys meeting people very much and hearing their stories. Welcome, Gillian. Lovely to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Lovely to speak with you as well.
Your new book is called Alone. What was your inspiration to write your new book?
My husband and I, when my husband was still alive, we spent 10 days up in Longreach because there's lots to see and do in Longreach. We took the train trip up, which something I really wanted to do. And we met we met a couple up there. Who'd just retired. They'd just sold their Brahman cattle stud and they lived away from anybody, out in the sticks a bit. And the lady especially was finding it very hard to live amongst people. They'd moved to the outskirts of Chinchilla and she was finding it really strange to have neighbours and things like that. And it set me thinking, and I thought, oh, well, I'll reverse that in a way and think about somebody living out in the outback on their own. My heroine has just lost her husband and about 9 months before. And she has a son that she hasn't seen for a long time who is not very nice and comes back and demands his share of the property. He threatens her and she's afraid of him. Now, that sounds a bit extreme, but there are cases where children frighten their parents and vice versa, of course.
Indeed.
I like writing about situations that mostly women find themselves in. I like writing about strong women, I suppose, and situations that can happen to anybody at any time. We never know what's around the corner. So that was my inspiration for the book, just talking to this lady, and then I rang them up and asked them about their cattle stud and things like that. So I got my facts right a bit. So that was the inspiration for the book. Rachel's son, it all spirals horribly out of control and she has a bit of a bad time. But anyway.
Sounds very intriguing. I can relate. My dad actually lives in northern New South Wales and he's on 50 acres on his own and he certainly prefers his own company, and I've got 3 children, we go and spend some time there, and he after 3 days is like, enough already. So I certainly can relate. So have you had any experience with life on a farm and the land?
Yes, I'm a farmer's daughter. I married a farmer. I married 2 farmers actually, because I was married twice. So I've always lived in the country, always lived on farms, always been with animals. It's part of who I am, really. It's in my bones, I think.
You love riding horseback. How is that? Do you still do that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't really get the opportunity now, unfortunately. I would if I could, if I had the opportunity. I've ridden since I was about 3 years old. I think about the first word I ever said was horse.
Was it?
Yes.
That's beautiful.
I've always been horse mad. So I rode a great deal throughout my life until this last few years. But yes.
Good for you. So living on the land for all your life, what is it about the country and the outback as a backdrop to your book? How have you related that?
Oh, well, I just, when we've travelled in the outback, because we have travelled out there quite a bit, I love the isolation. I love the great big skies and the land that you can see forever. You can almost see the curvature of the earth in some places. I've been out to Birdsville and places like that, and I just find it absolutely amazing. And like the Kimberley, it's so beautiful, so really beautiful. And it makes you feel very small.
Yeah, you certainly are humbled when you're there. That's for sure.
Yes.
Jill, you mentioned before that you like to write about strong women, and all your books have this theme, although they are all very different women. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, well, there are things in the first book that kind of I related to. The girl in the first book, her best friend is out hunting, because I did a lot of hunting in England. Her best friend is killed in front of her. Somebody that I knew very well was killed in front of me. But I was considerably older than Jenny in the book. But it does impact on you, and she's 19, and it has a huge effect on her. She also meets a man that she falls in love with, but he's completely unobtainable. She comes to Australia, and she sort of heals a bit, but she's also stalked by another young man who their fathers are best friends. So she doesn't want to do anything to upset that friendship. And she nearly loses the understanding of her family because she's torn with all this loyalty to her family. And she's also torn because she loves this man so much and she can't have him. So that's the first one. And the second one is about domestic violence, actually.
Heavy subject.
I was sitting watching the television one night, the news, and it was all about domestic violence. And I thought, yes, I could write about that. So there again, Anna doesn't realise how strong she is. I think there's a lot of us that don't realise until we're actually faced with things, how strong we can be. Especially women, they don't actually... we get put down a bit that we're not that strong really, but we are. We're the ones that bring up the family and the kids and do multitasking.
Everything.
That's right. And the third one is about, she's in her mid-20s and she has this secret, and she comes to Australia partly to escape her past. And she meets a man who's also got a lot of emotional baggage, and they get really close. And then he asks her to marry him, and she has to tell him her secret, and that's it. That's it. He doesn't want to know. And then the last book I wrote, which is a very touchy subject in a way, is about a family coping with a family member who has dementia. And one or two people said to me, do you really want to write about that? And I thought, yes, because there's a lot of people out there that are hurting with this. Yeah, so that is how it nearly blows a family completely apart. I suppose I'm really interested, I've always had an interest in how people relate to each other, and I'm a people watcher. If I go somewhere and there's lots of people, I'm quite happy to sit and watch them. You can always make up stories, but it's interesting how people cope with things.
Very inspirational, Jill, and also the fact that all the topics are probably more people than we realise actually go through things like you've written in your books. So how did you go about researching this sort of stuff for your books?
I suppose it depends which book you're talking about. I mean, I did quite a bit of research for the last one, but then having looked after my husband's mother, who wasn't really demented, but she became really quite ill. And I think because I'm going back to the 80s now, I think because she was quite ill, she thought she was we thought she'd got dementia. But when we finally got her into a nursing home, she was suddenly all right mentally. And I think it was because she was so worried about the fact that she was stressing us so much that it made her act oddly. Because my husband had an invalid brother who also lived with us. So we'd got his mum and his brother, and we were looking after them both. And it was a tough time. So although I've known people with dementia, I haven't actually really looked after anybody with dementia, but I also am aware of how having somebody well, like Neil's brother, to always think of in the home. That gave me a little bit of an insight. And actually, I had a doctor who's read that last book and was full of praise for it. She said I'd hit the nail on the head, so I was quite pleased about that.
That's a great recommendation.
Yeah, it is. It is. The book about the woman with the secret. Somebody said to me, "Why don't you write? You should write a travel book." And I thought, "Oh gosh, that's boring. There's loads of travel books out there. Here's another one." So I thought I'll have a girl that travels while she's healing, and so that's really what she does. And all the places in the book are places that I've actually been to. So she travels sort of some of the places I've been to, and so she's traveling, she's healing emotionally as well as physically. So that was the idea behind that one.
They sound really intriguing and like really good reads and inspirational, and obviously you've drawn from your own experience as well as some of the research you might have done. And so what are you looking forward to at the symposium, Jill?
Oh, I'm just looking forward to the whole thing, really. I'm looking forward to meeting people. I haven't actually met anybody from the shoreline. I've only spoken to people on the phone, so that could be really interesting. I just hope they make it up here.
Yeah, I know. It's a weird situation with COVID. How are you coping with it?
Oh, it's okay. I mean, out here, I feel fairly safe. I didn't really appreciate the lockdown too much because it was just after my husband had passed away.
Oh,
So
that would have been
it was
tough.
a bit of a double whammy. Even now, there are days when I have a bit of a downer, I have to say. But as I was saying, I admire strong women, so I've got to be strong, haven't I?
That's right. Well, obviously you are. You sound like you've coped with it or dealt with a lot during your life, even just here in
Yes,
Australia. Well, how
yeah.
old were you when you moved over?
I'll give my age away now, won't it? 70.
Wow. You look amazing. That is so inspirational, traveling to another country to live.
Well, we'd actually been coming out here since the 1980s, just about every year, because my husband's got a lot of family down in Canberra. So we first came out to visit them, and then we were coming out every year. And then our youngest daughter emigrated, and of course, it's grandchildren. So we ended up sort of spending 6 months here and 6 months there.
Yeah.
And we finally bit the bullet a little while ago and came to live. So yes, it's been a sort of a bit of an up and down journey, but we got here in the end.
Well, I'm guessing that you love Australia to have moved over here.
Oh, absolutely. Our daughter was 10 the first time we brought her out here. And when she got her citizenship, a few years ago, she turned to me and she said, "Mum, I've been wanting to do this since I was 10 years old."
Oh, that's
So
beautiful.
really, really, impacted on her in a way that we hadn't realised.
Aussie, 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 eh?
Yeah, I think so.
So back to the symposium, obviously you're going to have your books there for sale and you'll be talking to people that want to come along. It's open to the public. Obviously, given the situation with COVID, we're hoping we can have as many people there as possible. It might be a little bit limited, but you'll be having a chat with everyone that comes along.
I will, and I've been trying to sort of persuade people to come.
Excellent.
I think a lot of people are hanging back at the moment thinking, is it going to happen and all the rest of it? But hopefully as it gets nearer the time and it looks more hopeful, I think people will then start sort of buying tickets. I think I've had a lot of people say they'd like to come, but just holding back a little bit.
Hopefully it won't spiral. And with any luck, Melbourne will keep going down and we'll be able to have a great time.
That's right. I mean, we're so lucky here. I was talking to my son on the phone the other night. He's in France, and he said there are 1,000 cases a day.
Yeah, that's a lot. I just hope that we can get beyond this in the not too distant future, that we can put it behind us like they did back in the 1919s when the Spanish plague happened. You know, it would be a good thing.
That's
I
right.
think all working together and doing the right thing, hopefully we can.
Yes, I hope so too. Yeah, because I was planning on going to Norway and the UK in May, but of course that didn't happen.
No.
I'm desperate to see my family in the UK and my son in France. So
Do you use Skype
Oh,
or?
yes, yeah. But we FaceTime as a rule. I've always gone every year. I haven't missed a year until this year, so
Oh,
it's quite hard, really.
yeah, I can imagine, especially given the circumstances with your husband, your late husband. Well, that
Yes,
just
yes.
shows how strong you are.
Well, I try.
Very resilient. Jill, where can people find more about you?
Well, I've got a website which is gillianwellsauthor.com.au. There's some photographs on there as well, so they can see some of the things I used to get up to.
Oh, that's a nice
But
tease.
my English daughter, as I call her, and I used to run a hat business as well, so that was quite interesting.
Oh, very
So
cool. A lady of many talents, obviously.
I don't know about that, but anyway.
Well, I look forward to seeing you at the symposium on the 14th of November. I really appreciate your time today, Jill, and all the best with Alone. I'm sure anyone that reads it will write some good reviews after having a chat with you today. It sounds very good.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you very much, Simone. It's been great talking to you as well.